Good evening, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday night, the 8th of October, and welcome to episode 156 of So What's Been Happening. Excuse my little croaky itch in my voice that I've got tonight. Can't seem to kick it. It's hanging around like the flu is at the moment. But super nice tonight in show 156 to be joined by a band known as Green Mohair Suits. Super name. We've got Brian Campeau joining us to have a chat. So we don't go too far, obviously out in the northern suburbs of Melbourne now, and we transgress over to modern Brunswick, which is a really nice spot to catch up with Brian tonight. So let's bring him up and have a chat about what's going on in the world of Green Mohair Suits. Welcome to the show, mate.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Exciting time to put out music again.
Yeah. Is it?
Well, yeah, interesting. We'll save that conversation for a second, but yeah, you're right. It is an interesting time, that's for sure. The question is it a good time, and how hard it is to get stuff out there at the moment. But look, the exciting part is you're hitting the road, or the boys are hitting the road again to come and join you in Melbourne to play a couple of shows. You've just done a couple of shows in the last week or so, which is really cool to release the new album that's just come out. Here it is, called Stan Wella. Great cover. Talk to us quickly a little bit about that cover and how that came about.
The cover was painted by a friend of ours called Chris Horder, who's based in Sydney. He's a close friend he's been a friend of ours for ages, but he's quite close to Richie, who's the mandolin player. And Richie was intending on using the artwork on his own release that I don't think ever came about. And we were looking at artwork. We were thinking about how to make it look nice, and we're strongly pushing towards getting a vinyl. And I think Richie pulled this out and said, well, I'm not going to use this, so if you guys want to, I think that's it'd be a good idea. And we all looked at it and thought it was beautiful, so yeah, we went with that.
And in amongst that, you also the two singles obviously look like details, close-up details of the same pic.
That's
great
right.
way to use multi-service there. With the first single you released, you've done it again. And Hell or High Water as well.
That's right.
Two great tracks. So look forward to chatting about those in a little bit more depth in a second or so. But firstly, look, thanks for joining me. It's great to spend a Tuesday night together. Probably a little release, a little gap in your tour of the next few dates that are coming up. We get a chance to spend some time with the boys in Melbourne, which is nice. Hit the road again. Here they are, which are two gigs coming up. One at the Vine, October 11 in Wangaratta, and October 12 at the Brunswick Bar in Melbourne. So exciting. Brunswick Artist Bar, absolutely. And just the picture I'm using in the background for myself tonight is upstairs in the Brunswick Ballroom, if you can't pick it for some people. But a great room, and downstairs is a fantastic little bar to hang out any night of the week. So lucky to have so much live music still happening in amongst Melbourne. How was the first couple of shows up in Sydney and amongst the kind of tour that you've kicked off?
Yeah, they were brilliant. We played it was kind of in and around Sydney. So we played Mannell last Thursday at a brewery called the Modus Operandi Brewery. And we're kind of mates with them. Jason, the banjo player, is friends with them. And we started gigging there a few years ago, and they treat us really well. So that went down quite well. And it was a relaxed gig. So we've decided live to play the new album front to back. Just to, that's how we want to present it. Rather than doing a few songs and doing a few old ones, we just went, let's just do the whole album. Yep. And that was a good opportunity to try that out, to get it ready for the actual Sydney launch at the Gasoline Pony in Marrickville. And that was a beautiful gig. All our friends came out. I lived in Sydney for 15 years. And I lived in Melbourne now for 7 years. And so a lot of people came down and said hi, because I don't get up there very much anymore. So that was a really a heartwarming gig, I suppose. And we've now been playing for pretty much 20 years. So it felt quite nice to do that. And then the following day, we went and played at Frank's Wild Years in Thirroul. And that was, again, a really lovely gig. Had a bunch of friends come down and their families and stuff like that. So, an afternoon gig too. So it was great.
And 20 years, it's a great celebration. But
Yeah.
God, it's been a journey, hasn't it, for the
20
20
years and we don't hate each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose you had a fair break at some stage in the middle there, and definitely a break between this album. But obviously, COVID grounded everyone, and this is the reason this podcast kind of started. We literally jumped on and had a chat to a few mates. Worked out how to go live on Facebook because we kind of got sick of the Zoom chats and walking within our 1 kilometre radius, which was just horrendous in Melbourne. So in amongst that, we went live and we realised how bad the music industry had become, and in amongst punters and everyone else. So obviously with that grounded overnight, we had grabbed a mate, and he played a few tunes in between how shit we told everyone we were feeling. So it was interesting. And since then, we've connected with so many artists, both music artists, both street artists, all sorts of incredible artists in sports, and also mental health chats. So that's kind of the journey we've been on, but a fantastic journey you've been on as a band. Green Mohair Suits. Mate, tell us a little bit about the name, and was it the first name chosen, or was there a couple in the mix? What could it have been?
I don't think we've ever considered another name. So
yeah, right.
Years and years ago, so 20 years ago, I was playing open mics in and around Sydney. Like, this is ages ago. And one open mic was suggesting doing a tribute show to Gram Parsons and the Flying Burrito Brothers.
Yep.
And he's got a song called Sin City where they reference Green Mohair Suits. And we thought, man, this is perfect. And it was just Jason and I at the time doing this gig. And then after that, I think Richie was also doing similar gigs to us, and Jason knew him. And turns out he'd just been learning the mandolin and he liked Gram Parsons. And then Benny, after that, joined the band. It wasn't too long, but yeah, the name, I don't think any other name's ever been considered. It just stuck. And it's fantastic. A weird one because people, you say, what's your band called? And we say Green Mohair Suits. Like, what? Well, we're not called anything schmancy like the Screaming Eagles or something. But
Yep. Yeah. That's a great name. It's catchy. It sticks with you.
Yeah.
A little bit of a tongue twister as you try and roll it out all the time, but it's a great one. Definitely one that attracts attention on a bill, on a poster, and a name, and you think, mate, what's the deal with these guys? So tell me, has it always been? Well, how long's it been the four in the group? Has it always been like that?
Yeah, it's been the core four for pretty much the entire time. We've had a few extra members here and there. We've had a couple of bassists. One guy, Mikey, was probably longer lasting, maybe 5 years he was with us. And he built a bass out of boat offcut, so it was in the shape of a boat. It was brilliant. Yeah. But I think it wasn't really for him to be playing this stuff. And we had Alana Stone from All Our Exes Live in Texas was in the band for a while. Yep. She and I were a couple for quite a few years, and she just got into the band, and when we broke up, I think it made more sense for her not to be in the band.
Sure. Yeah.
And a few other just floating members here and there. Yeah.
Really cool. All right. Well, you've been kind enough to let us into your lounge room for a couple of however long we get to chat here tonight. So we haven't really put a time frame on it, but we'll just kind of chat till it feels about right. But you've been generous enough to play a song for us. So what are you going to play first for us?
I'm going to start with a song that's on the album. I'm only going to play songs that are off of it. This one's called Your Door, and it had been sort of a riff of mine for years, maybe 5 years. I've had it stuck in my head, and I listened to a lot of Ron Sexsmith. It was me trying to get that style of songwriting into my own repertoire. And I mean, I'm not trying to be Ron Sexsmith, obviously. I don't think anybody can. The guy's amazing. But, me paying tribute, I suppose.
Sure.
Cool.
All right, let's do it.
Had you locked the door? Thrown away the key for sure. I could knock, oh, but I must have dozed. I came back, the door was closed to me. As you hide your gaze, tell me that it's just a phase. Still I knock, things could change, I suppose. It seems the door is closed to me. Through the window I could peer, nobody home. It would appear again. When you shut the door, you threw my heart upon the floor. I couldn't talk, like a thorn upon a rose. Sweetly your door is closed to me.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Cheers, thank you.
Nice, beautiful little finger picking there. It was beautiful along the way.
Can you actually see it? I'm trying not to look at the camera.
That's all right. We saw a little bit of it. We didn't get too much, but that gave us the perspective to dial in on some of those lyrics. It's a great track.
Sweet, thank you.
Is that going to be released as another single? What's kind of the plan for the album? Obviously, 2 singles released out of the album so far, I'm led to believe.
Yeah, we're supposed to release more, and then we had this thing with ABC Radio, and they did this feature for us and said, "Oh, and the album's going to be released on this date," which is like 2 months before it was supposed to be released.
Right.
So we kind of changed the publicity campaign, and now I don't know what's what.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it'll be released as a single. We'll see.
Yep. Just on publicity, Chris Familton doing an incredible job in amongst this. Thanks for connecting the guys to myself, Chris. You've been super in offering so many artists to me. How important is it to have someone in today's world in your publicity corner, and you guys can kind of do what you do instead of trying to do everything?
It takes a huge weight off our shoulders to have somebody who knows enough people and who's well connected, especially with our music. We've had publicists over the years who didn't quite get what we were doing. We had, maybe I shouldn't say anything because I'm going to be naming names, so I won't do that. But we've definitely had a fair share of people who just didn't get what we were doing.
Yep.
And it's never been for us about being, maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot, but I don't really think so because, if you're together as a band for 20 years, then clearly something's working. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's been more about writing good music and enjoying ourselves on stage. And I think some publicists and managers in the past have assumed that we were more pursuing, I don't know, a bigger stage, which would be nice, but that's not really the point. And we're not looking to be huge or get on TV we just want to make music and have a decent audience to play to. Yep. And Chris, I think, has that idea in mind.
Well, yeah, that's the great part about music is you can find your little hole or your pocket, not a hole, but very much a pocket, sit in it and bring some other bands in. That folk country kind of space is really big at the moment, and I think increasing in popularity.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm actually kind of surprised at its increase in popularity. I remember when we started playing, that after that Gram Parsons tribute night, and not a lot of our friends knew about him. But then I think within about 2 years, all of a sudden, this huge uptake in bluegrass music from the Australian scene, and then you had bands like Mustard Courage, and Melbourne had a festival called Jamgrass for a while, which was organized by an American dude, and his friends as well. But it just seemed to us like we got in there pretty much just before the whole blow up of the bluegrass scene. And it seemed for a while that it was kind of dying, but it's not really. Like, if you go to the Gem in Fitzroy, it's packed every night with country artists. And there's festivals all over the place. This Dashville just happened in Sydney, and that's pretty much just country artists. So, it's really good news for us to have that support from the audience that want to hear not even just popular straight-up Tamworth country, but this kind of like a bit varied and more artistic version of country, which is the Americana thing, but even variations on that. It's nice to see that support. You've disappeared. Hi, it's just me.
Sorry about that. Not sure.
Oh, you're all right. I was gonna start telling jokes.
I'm back. So sorry we got cut off there, but I'm back.
No, it's all right. I was just saying it's nice to have that support from the audience of a type of country which isn't I don't want to say Keith Urban, but this really clean Steely Dan version of country. It's more, there's a lot of support for this kind of various version of Americana and all these different colors to it, which is great. I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah, I mean, it's 20 years. You've seen a lot happen amongst those 20 years, and it's great to hear that out in Australia, in a little pocket like Melbourne, that it's kind of got a bit of a good scene, because it used to be very much out in, I suppose, right out in the country scenes, out. It's very much headed into metro Melbourne now, and very much become a very much a must listen type style music now, which is great.
Yeah, it's really lovely. And on top of that, like having podcasts like yours, and do you know Brooke Russell, who works at Triple R?
Absolutely, yep.
And Brooke Russell, she's promoting it constantly, and there's a couple shows on PBS as well that are really supporting this style and this appropriation of country music.
Definitely, and little festivals like Out on the Weekend, which is actually on this Saturday down in Williamstown, is a really good push for getting in. And some people dress up, some people get right in amongst it. Some people, like Benny Maswick, just roll around like that all day, every day.
I know. He's pretty committed.
Absolutely, it's great to see. He's a good friend of the show, Benny Maswick, and always welcome. So we've interviewed many Americana / country / folk in amongst all that, including some young blokes coming up. We're going to interview in the next couple of weeks, called Sweet Talk, who are headlining at a few festivals now. They're starting to really blow up, which is great, but they'll be headlining down Out on the Weekend, which is super. Yeah, so there's some great little bars in amongst Melbourne. Have you got a little favorite?
Oh man, to be honest, one of my favorite bars is, I listen to everything. I really love metal, so the Toad's brilliant for this.
Yep.
I love the Retreat.
Sure.
I love it because it's a bar that hasn't really tried to do up its image. I mean, it's the same. There's actually a lot more bars in Melbourne that have upheld their old image rather than kind of redoing themselves.
Yep.
But I love the Retreat because on any given night, you can walk in and quite often see a band for free. They're young and they just want to fucking play whatever they want. Pardon my language. Sure. But the venue supports it. The venue supports this like random noise band on a Monday night of 18-year-olds. And sometimes it's shit, but more often than not, it's great. And these musicians are brilliant. So I love the Retreat for that.
Definitely. There's so much uniqueness in amongst that. And that's kind of the joy of going early to seeing support bands.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some of the talent you discover that you never would have seen unless you were there early. Whether they're playing, it might be an artist that is normally in a band and they're playing solo for the night or whatever, and it's they're definitely some of those special moments, or it might be a cut down version that's been done acoustic, very different to how it sits on the album. We just
Yeah.
kind of like while we jump into your lounge room tonight and you get a chance to kind of play it a little bit different to how it kind of sits on the album in amongst accompanied with the rest of the band. So that's kind of timely that we'll hit you up for a second song.
Oh shit, already? Okay, fine. All right, this one's called "He Shouldn't Know," and it's a bit of a sad one. Just somebody losing the people around him. It's a true story, but somebody losing the people around him, and one of the people around him, I'm kind of talking to her in the song and saying that I hope you don't leave this person because nobody should have to deal with that in life. So that's this song. Whoop, if I get it right. Don't leave an orphan just yet. You've got some living left to do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. He's seen the worst of the years despite the very few he's had. That he's had. That he's had. No one should be given such a life. Not so young, be given strife. No one should be given such a woe. Not so young, he shouldn't know. He shouldn't know. So let's keep pretending the roses bloom all year and never die. Never die. Please never die. I'll try to shelter your mind from all the pain you'll find outside. You can hide. You can hide. No one should be given such a life. Not so young, be given strife. No one should be given such a woe. Not so young, he shouldn't know. So don't leave an orphan just yet. You've got some living left to do. Ooh, yes, you do. Yes, you do. No one should be given such a life. Not so young, be given strife. No one should be given such a woe. Not so young, he shouldn't know. He shouldn't know. He shouldn't know. He shouldn't know. That's it.
Yeah, that is it. All right. It's a great one.
Cheers. Thanks.
Yeah, some nice lyrics in there as well. It's a great little track. 4-part harmonies in amongst this band. Exciting.
Yeah, I'm playing it quite differently from how we're going to do it live. But the issues of a one-man band.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's really nice to have a song stripped right back You get to kind of capture some of the moments in amongst those songs, and it just puts a different take on it. Do you play kind of solo much at all yourself? Or these days?
Yeah, I've been a solo artist the whole time. I think I've been a solo artist now for fuck knows. I
Too
don't
long.
know, a long time. I've got a
Yeah.
lot of albums under my belt. I've got one that I'm waiting to finish. I'm through a label called my own stuff through a label called Artist Catharsis, and I've made this sort of like I've delved really deep into yodeling, but Swiss
Yeah.
yodeling.
Yep.
So it's not so much the country stuff, but the real more intricate stuff.
Mm.
So I've got this album that I'm waiting to release, but that's should be coming out in June. And that's got Danny Heifetz on drums, Tamara Murphy on bass, and Gideon Priest on piano from Husky.
Right.
So that'd be good. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's quite different from the Green Mohair Suits.
Yep. So obviously super stimulated with multi-genres and all sorts of stuff in amongst 20 years. You've been in particular in this band, but playing music for obviously a lot longer as well.
Yeah.
Recording this album in particular,
Yeah.
did it come out or was the process a little bit different to what you've done in some of your previous albums, obviously on the back of COVID?
Yeah. So
How did
so
this one
there's a
roll
bit of
out?
there's a bit of a story to this. So when COVID first happened, we all kind of got in touch with, well, we just spoke because we're close friends anyway, but we spoke and said, while we're locked in, especially us in Victoria, or me in Victoria, I was just constantly at home doing nothing. So I spoke with the guys and I'm like, well, let's get some songs together and we can kind of trade them off. You know, I'll do guitar vocals and pass them around. And so we wrote quite a few songs, but we never got around to actually recording it until last year, long after the lockdowns had happened. Last year, we kind of went, well, let's maybe rent an Airbnb in Stanwell Park, which is just south of Sydney. And so we did that. And that was a really good chance for us to actually work on the songs for a week and get it all done. And it was super helpful for us, which is why we named the album Stan Wella, because it's the history of the name of Stanwell Park. So yeah, it was a lot more helpful to do that. It's different from the way that I record usually, because it's my project that I kind of develop slowly over time. And it's hard for me to pull away from something like my own project, but at least with the Green Mohair Suits and the Mohairs, it was easier to just say, we have a week, and once we're done, we all have kind of an equal share in the amount of songs that we have. But once we're done, you go home and you've got about a month to finish it before we send it to mastering. So it was done quickly. We didn't overthink anything. We felt comfortable with our own songs, because if you spend, you know, for myself, having just my own instrumentation and voice on my own record, I spend a lot more time thinking about it. But because I'm happy with what Benny, Jason, and Richie do on my tracks, I can just go, that's how the song goes, and it's not gonna, I don't want to change it any more than that. So yeah, it's quite cathartic, that working with the Mohairs in that way.
Yeah, which is different to what you've done previously, where you've probably procrastinated a little bit more over trying to get them right, or in amongst the band. How's it? You know,
No,
what are the other points of difference?
the band has been pretty good at getting things out quickly. It's very much we all show up in the studio and do our thing. Previously, it's been very much that. It's never been about, you know, taking months and months and months and producing and overthinking it. That's more, you know, Richie and I do that ourselves. Richie's actually better at doing just a band thing. I spend ages putting something out. Benny is way more meticulous. Benny's the lap steel player. Benny has been way more meticulous with his own music, and he's very considerate to every single slight sound that happens on the album is actually on his own stuff, and ours as well, but less so, but on his own stuff. Way more pedantic with how things happen. And that's why when you listen to Ben Romalis' music solo, it is flawless. It's unbelievable. But, you know.
Pretty handy to have
It is
in the
nice.
stable, though.
Yeah, it is nice.
Yeah. And the actual songwriting process for you in particular, how do you kind of go about putting a song together these days? Is it lyrics in amongst, written spoken word kind of first, or how do you go about it?
For my approach to my own music is quite different, but when it comes to the Green Mohair Suits, I tend to work off of tricks. It's not. It's like I've got this bag of tricks that I kind of give to our version of country music. We call it garage grass because it's
Sure.
not bluegrass. It's sort of Americana, but Americana is pretty much anything these days.
Sure.
So we just call ours garage grass and we go, that's it. But I've got this bag of tricks that I contribute to that ideal. And so that finger picking pattern that I used on the last song, it doesn't really make it to the album this time, but it's the way that I wrote that song. And I had this lyrical idea after the chords were there and this melody was there. I had this lyrical idea about somebody that I know in that story. And the other song, it's always music first and then lyrics second. But the other song, I had this chord change and these certain melodic tricks and harmonic tricks that I really liked. And then I applied lyrics to it. And that's that. And then you bring it to the band and they do what they do to it that makes it its own sound that I could never do for myself.
Yeah. What song on the album was one that kind of surprised you in maybe a different feel of how it came up, or it wasn't the original intention? I know you said you kind of put them together quickly, so I suppose they're somewhat all surprises, all the ones in amongst what you do.
That first one that I did, Your Door, I was really happy with the way that the vocals came through and the sensitivity to it. I know that sometimes we can bash our instruments for our friends' songs, but the sensitivity, actually in general, the album's quite sensitive. I'm not sure I'm using the right word there, but and there's a few other songs as well. Some of Richie's songs. Richie has a very earnest way. I don't want to say simple, but it's a very earnest way of writing a song, which comes across as simple, but it's the same way that I think it's got a similarity to Paul Kelly, in that Paul Kelly will write a song about, eating a sandwich. I mean, he does actually have a song about buying sandwiches in every city, but it's this real simple thing about him. And I think the fact that it's so simple is what makes it so beautiful. And Richie's got that skill to him. And we didn't, again, bash our instruments to it. We actually, it's quite sensitive the way that we approached it, even though it sounds kind of upbeat. We could have been way less considerate towards it, and I think it worked out quite well.
Yeah. All right, let's talk influences for a little minute. Let's go back a bit to when you're an early young boy, and kind of what's your kind of first memory of music, and what was kind of playing, and where kind of was it? Do you
As
remember?
A kid?
Yeah, let's go back.
Shit.
We're going flying back now.
My earliest memory of music is listening to Jersey Girl by Tom Waits in the back seat of my mom and dad's car, and I would have been about 3. That's my earliest memory of music. And since then, I think the whole band actually loves Tom Waits. Then again, I wouldn't trust somebody who doesn't. But yeah, that's my first memory.
Wow.
And in terms of influences towards the band, I mean, Tom Waits, Gram Parsons, Hank Williams for me, the big one with regard to this band. Ron Sexsmith, huge influence, Ron Sexsmith. I know Jason listens to a lot of. Jason's got this side of him that's sort of like, he was really into the Drones, for example. I'm not sure he'd say that's his favorite, his biggest influence, but he likes bands like that have this edge to him. So American Music Club was a big one for Jason.
Yep.
Richie, Paul Kelly, who's that, Augie March, real kind of jangly singer-songwriters. Benny's a bit harder to pick. Benny likes things that are complicated but don't sound complicated. So I love that. But yeah, Benny, that's his, I would say that's his approach to it. Benny, he likes it to sound simple, but when you pick it apart, it's really fucking complicated.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's some of the magic of music, isn't it?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and then move to your kind of teens. Well, I know you mentioned kind of metal and all sorts of things in amongst growing up and the years of rebellion, so to speak. What was your go-to album when you kind of think about it and look back now? What did you absolutely wear the grooves off?
As a teenager,
Mm.
oh man, uh, uh, what did I listen to? I listened to too much stuff. When I was a teenager, I just, my tastes exploded. So I was back into going through my parents' records and Pink Floyd and the Beatles and all that and all of the obvious bands. And obviously, Nirvana was out and In Utero had come out. Deftones were out. I really got into them. In terms of metal, Megadeth, Slayer, the big four, except for Anthrax. I'm not a big Anthrax fan.
Yep.
Um, and then I remember at one point, this is the country thing that really instilled itself. I was friends with my best friend's dad, and he introduced me to Hank Williams and Gram Parsons. And Hank Williams, I knew a little bit about, but he said, "No, like here's a CD that I've come up with for you." He put some Social Distortion on there too, just to kind of even things out for me, not to
Sure.
hit me too hard in the face with Hank Williams.
Yep.
And then, Gram Parsons and Jimmy Rogers was a huge one for me. I remember hearing Jimmy Rogers for the first time when I was 17, and that was revolutionary for me.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the guitar, when did the guitar kind of first make its way into your hands and become an extension of a voice almost?
I was about 5, and I was really into Guns N' Roses, the first 2 albums, Lies and Appetite,
Yep.
and Def Leppard. And my parents said, "Hey, you can choose an extracurricular activity." We were living in France at the time. And I pictured myself being on a huge stage, just like Guns N' Roses.
Yep.
And I said, "Yeah, but you got to practice." And they'd make me sit for 3 hours a day practicing classical music.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's what did it. And
That's
if it
what did
wasn't
it.
guitar, what would it be for you? What would you like to have that you haven't kind of jumped in front of or taken on?
I would love to be better at the piano. I know it's an obvious one. Like most people say, "Oh, I'd love to be a fiddle player or something," which I'd love to as well.
Yep.
But I'd just love to be better at the piano, just rhythmically and thinking. Like the right hand on the guitar for me is kind of it's just a pattern, just as a pattern.
Yep.
And the left hand does the intricate stuff. So I don't have to think about my right hand. But I admire a good pianist who is able to think about both hands at once in the combination. That's a skill that I think you can look at a pianist and go, "Oh, yeah, he's good," but it's fucking hard. I find it really difficult to actually make them both play like counterpoint, the having 2 melodies in both hands.
Well, I think for me as a punter and
Yeah.
a watcher of and listener of a lot of music, I think you guys amaze me every day of the week, no matter whether it's a solo artist or a full band. Both the magic that happens on stage, the ability to transport people into another space is an incredible gift. So thank you for doing what you do, Brian.
I'll keep doing it.
Absolutely. I know that's kind of what you know, and it's what you love. But are you lucky enough to call this music world your life, or do you have to have a real job, as other people say? Sadly,
Yeah. I've got a real job, but
yeah,
I mean, it's in music. I work at a university,
yep,
and I work a lot with fixing gear, with teaching 20-year-olds how to use huge recording consoles and how to use software DAWs and how to use a microphone. I'm learning how to fix microphones and keyboards, and yeah, it's great. It's very much involved with music, and I get to just have music playing constantly in my office while I'm fixing stuff and singing along to stuff. So
yeah,
yeah,
very nice.
I'm lucky enough to call music my life, but I work in a bunch of different ways, including one that makes me or helps me pay my rent.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
gigging.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Sadly, it's bloody hard. We
yeah,
touched on it just before, how hard it is to make money,
yeah,
releasing music, playing it, and actually trying to make a buck at the same
yeah,
time without pouring all your hard earned money into it.
yeah,
Let's face it, there's very little support, even though they say they support all the artists.
yeah.
Is the government? These little $1,000 grants just kind of don't cut it.
No, they don't. I mean, it's nice. I don't even think we've ever applied for a grant because we've had enough as a four piece to, with jobs, we've had enough to kind of pour into it without asking for grants. But even my friends who have grants everyone's got a job. Just
Mm.
having a grant or selling albums and gigging just doesn't pay enough,
Yep.
especially when you consider flights. I mean, flying to Sydney on a cheaper end is $300, and that doesn't really cover, four piece isn't going to get $1,200 for a random gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you found it? Like, how much harder is it now in 2024 versus what it was even 5 and 10 years ago to try and put together a tour, 4 or 5, 6 shows in amongst a couple of weeks, multi
I
states?
suppose, yeah, I suppose before the pandemic and before moving to Melbourne, I was used to doing 4 or 5 gigs a week. So it was pretty constant. And then I moved to Melbourne and there was a bit of a readjustment period and I knew a bunch of people here, but it was an adjustment period and getting to know the scene. And then the pandemic hit. And I've been the booking agent for the band pretty much the whole time. I've organized the tours in terms of venues that we play at for the most part. Here and there, I got a friend in Brisbane. But I found it much harder this time in organizing a tour, like way harder. I was really surprised by how hard it was to get people to respond or to get venues to be on board with us to do these things. Um, so I don't know. Or maybe it also is the fact that I'm not 30 anymore. That was
Sure.
15 years ago. And
Yep.
I'm kind of happy that there's a bunch of kids doing gigs. A bunch of kids at my university are doing a lot of gigs at the moment, and it's brilliant.
Mm.
That's what you should be doing when you're 20.
Yep.
But who wants to see some 45-year-old get up on stage and play country music?
Still me.
I know,
In
me
amongst,
too.
there are plenty,
Yeah,
believe me, that do want to see people. I agree. There's some incredible young talents around now that have been exposed to so much music, and you, luckily enough, sound like you've been exposed to plenty of music across multi genres in
yeah.
your lifetime as well, which is super lucky. But in amongst that uni world and seeing young artists, is there a particular artist or young band that's kind of coming up that you think we need to get out and see?
Oh
Putting you on the
man.
spot.
Yeah, but now if I pick one but not the other, they're going to be upset.
No, let's be clear. Let's not have to pigeonhole too much. But
Uh,
yeah, just give me one, or you can give me a couple.
All
Take
right,
your
I'll give
pick.
you
But
one. I'll give you one which has been a real standout in the last year. Yeah, year. And it's a student at my school called Charlotte Bridie. Charlotte Bridie. And I saw her do her first gig, and it was quite meek. Not, I mean, the music's beautiful, but she was quite shy. And now, if I see her live, it's just full of attitude and charisma and brilliant songs, amazing performances, and the band's killer. So, and she's 21, maybe.
sure.
So I think she's going to do quite well for herself, and she plays constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great to see. And a word of advice to a young artist that's kind of trying to cut their teeth a little bit. You've been around for a while. What would you
Okay.
tell them that you wish you had heard when you were younger?
Yeah, I think I did hear it, but maybe my mind went elsewhere because that's what it does when you're
Mm,
young. I would say don't worry so much about being popular. Just do the music that you like to do and don't worry about the rest. If it works out, awesome. but I don't think you should have to sacrifice your integrity to be big. You should always follow what actually interests you musically.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's great words of advice. We won't keep you too much longer, but just a couple of last questions.
Sure.
You're putting together a dream band. This can be any genre. So we're putting you on the spot here with no notice, as we do on it. We don't give you any of these questions that I kind of get going as we chat, but you're putting together a dream band. First of all, we have to pick the stadium of where you're playing anywhere in the world. So we're going to open it right up, and then you're going to tell me the lineup of the band and what you're playing.
Oh man, come on. Well, I know. Hold on, I'm trying to remember the guitarist's name. I'm looking it up on YouTube, not on YouTube, on Google as we speak. He's the guy from Wilco, the guitarist from Wilco.
Yeah, I know who you mean, but his name escapes me as well.
Yeah. Hold on. His name is Nels Klein. I'll get him on guitar. Oh, I get tough one. It's funny. You know what? I almost don't even want to answer it because my favorite musicians are mostly my friends, and they're brilliant musicians. And I can just name a bunch. You know, Tam Murphy, the woman who played on my album, she's absolutely fucking brilliant. Same with Zoe Hauptman in Sydney. They're both two of my favorite bass players that I've ever heard or had the chance to play with. And there's some drummers that I've played with, Tully Ryan, who's in Sydney, and Danny Heifetz, who's on the album. Like, they're people that I handpicked and went, that's who I want to work with.
Sure.
And I mean, obviously, Steve Gadd would be great to play with, but it's, you know, if I've got my friend who can do kind of the same thing, then I'd rather that. Ben Hauptman on guitar. I think Ben Hauptman might be my favorite guitarist in Australia.
Yep.
Louis King, my housemate, who plays in a million bands, including Loretta Miller's band. He plays with her. He's brilliant. I'd love to have him in my band. Cade Brown, who's also my housemate, a pianist. I think he's one of my favorite pianists. Matt McMahon in Sydney as well. And then venue, oh man, I don't know. I don't know. Recital Hall in Sydney is beautiful, and Hamer Hall here, beautiful rooms.
Yeah, incredible.
That's a shit answer. Sorry, I should have said like Pompeii, and I want Thundercat on bass.
No, that's good. We'll go with that. So it obviously means a lot to you to play with close friends, and friends that, you know, you're lucky enough to be able to call them friends and musicians. That's pretty special. So to be able to do it after all these years, to still be playing together with people you come across and put them in your inner circle, must be pretty special to stand up there on stage and kind of belt out a few tunes with them.
It is, absolutely. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep in mind, we're 3 gigs into this little tour, releasing Stan Wella. Please get along to October 11th at the Vine if you can get to Wangaratta, and October 12th at Brunswick Artist Bar in Melbourne. What time's the Artist Bar gig? Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think we're starting at 4, and we're going to do 2 sets. We're going to do the album, and then we'll do some kind of just bangers that we've been playing for years. I think we're going to get Brooke Russell to jump up and sing as well. Beautiful. And I think we've got a couple. We're going to do a Neil Young song with her and something else.
Nice.
Oh, yeah,
it's great.
Really nice.
Have you done that in amongst this tour? Kind of a bit of a band extension as far as adding some extra flavor along the way?
We got a band called Bauer in Sydney who are relatively new. I'm struggling to remember most of their last names, but Lou Peak is in it, and Kat and Meggie. But they're on the album as well, on our album, and we got them up to support the band and also sing a bunch of songs with us during the set.
Very cool. All right, so the place you're looking for, we're just going to head everyone to the Bandcamp. Is probably the best option.
Yeah.
for yourselves. greenmohairsuits.bandcamp.com. Bandcamp Fridays coming up. That's the time when most of the money, nearly all, I hope all of them, nearly all the money goes to the actual band. It's hard enough to make a few bucks as a band, as fellow musicians. The hard-earned money has been tipped in already to put this kind of album together. What's next for Green Mohair Suits after this?
Well, we're still waiting for the vinyl to come out because we didn't realize it was going to take 14 weeks.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So yeah, the vinyl's coming out, and then I think we're going to do another little bunch of gigs in late January. Actually, maybe we'll go up to Tamworth. We've got a friend up there who runs a cafe bar, and see if we can play around the Tamworth Festival. And then more gigs in Sydney, more gigs in Melbourne. Just kind of keep going at what we're doing. It's not, and writing songs. There's not really a plan to go overseas or anything. Can't afford it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, isn't it? In amongst that, as much as we'd love to, but we're incredibly lucky to have good musicians here, good venues, and good punters that love getting out in amongst music. So I urge everyone this week and this weekend to try and get out and see a band. Sport's over. Forget NRL, forget AFL. It's done. Forget
Correct.
Bathurst. That's on this weekend. But if you can get out and you want to see some music, there's some incredible talent in amongst these. So the boys are coming down from Sydney to join Brian on stage at these couple of venues. Please get out and try and get there. Most importantly, bring a friend, because they could do with getting out and transporting. As I mentioned before, the awesome part about music is being, as a punter, is being able to be transformed or transported, so to speak, into another place and forget about life for a while. Plenty of people out there doing it a little tough. So if you can get out and support a friend, give them a call, tell them you're going to see a band. They'll have no idea who the band is, which is great. And that's not meant in disrespect to you guys. But that's the great part about that is you get out and see a band, someone you haven't seen before, walk the streets and run into a venue that might need your assistance over the weekend. Buy a beer, buy a soft drink, buy a Palmer, do anything you can, or Palmy for some of the people from Sydney. So get out there and experience music again, and venues need you right now. So thanks for joining me, Brian.
It's
Brian
a pleasure.
Campeau,
Thanks for having me.
So what's been happening? Episode 156. Long may it continue. We've got some great gigs coming up, so please keep an eye on the socials for those. So thanks for your time, mate. Good luck with the album.
Thanks so much, Aaron. Pleasure meeting you as well.
Chat soon.
See you, mate.
Fantastic to have Brian Campeau joining us from Green Mohair Suits. We look forward to catching up and try and get to the Brunswick Artist Bar this week. So make sure you check that one out if you can get there. Thank you, everyone that has joined me in so many shows that we've had, 156. We've had some repeats in amongst guests that have been on before and have come back to join us and tell us about what's going on in their world. It's fantastic to connect and also connect to people that we haven't heard from before, mainly off referrals now, which is even better. So if you've got someone that you feel wants to have a chat or wants to have a chat about some new music, old music, or their story, we'd love to hear from them. So please get on to us. Thank you to everyone. Please check out our link tree. That's got all the details of all our current social medias, audio and video versions of the podcast, which is great. And also thank you to all these artists. So we'll see you out there. Enjoy your week.